most parents, to the extent that I have spoken to family businesses or entrepreneurship in general, they don't want their children to get into business because it is risk and they want them to have a better life. India has around 11 crore businesses, of which 6 crore businesses are in some way legalized and they are formalized businesses, like they have a legal name. And there are another 5 crore businesses that they don't have a name at all.
Once again, a very warm welcome to the handcrafted hands of the poor.
Thank you.
It's an honor to have you here, sir.
Thank you.
So, while browsing through your profile, I observed that you pursued electronics engineering, subsequently transitioned into your family's construction business and formalized it. Now, this is an extensive journey through various phases of this journey. What challenges did you face during this journey?
The challenges of getting into entrepreneurship or a family business in India is it's a very patriarchal system, and it runs top down from the head of the family to the areas, to the rest of the people. So convincing your family itself would be the biggest challenge, and there is then a societal challenge. So the family wants children to follow what the society is generally doing. So in our environment, everyone were getting into the corporate world, getting out of the country to do their pursue their corporate careers and education. But and parents would want their children to follow the same thing, and that is the biggest barrier. And most parents, to the extent that I have spoken to family businesses or entrepreneurship in general, they don't want their children to get into business because it is risk and they want them to have a better life. So that is a big challenge that we will face in entrepreneurship. And I did face mine too in that area where my father wasn't accepting to me getting into construction. That too, it's an unorganized sector, and there are many stereotypical thought processes associated with that. But then keeping the challenges aside, I think we need to have something which is at the fore of us, a belief system for ourselves. And I was very clear that I would want to solve some kind of a problem. And knowing that it's an unorganized sector, I was very clear that I want to formalize it and moved along to that step. And I had my mother who stood very strongly to support me in this endeavor. Yeah. Yes.
So, sir, now that being said, you moved from electronics to civil, like from electronic background to civil engineering. Now, about 2 months back, you posted on LinkedIn that, and the first line said that India doesn't lack entrepreneurs. It lacks recognition to, it lacks recognition for them.
Right.
What exactly do you mean by this statement, and how critical is this?
Yeah. So to give you some figures, India has around 11 crore businesses, of which 6 crore businesses are in some way legalized and they are formalized businesses, like they have a legal name. And there are another 5 crore businesses that they don't have a name at all, like people who are selling vegetables, tea, and there are people who are doing many human resource services like maybe carpentry, plumbing, masonry, and many of these fields. And they all come in that 5 crore segment. And then the 6 crore segment is the MSMEs that you have. And there is some name, but there is no formal mechanism in which we are recognizing that. And you will see that in my experience, the stock market has around 2,650 to 2,700 companies. And they are large, extremely large, and you will see them everywhere. And that's the world you see. But there is no environment where the MSMEs or the SMEs are visible or even recognized. And that is a huge challenge in India. And the SME sector contributes around 13% to the GDP of our country. And I have seen that it is totally neglected, right? So, and that needs recognition in various forms. Now, if you take a plumber, a mason, a carpenter, or anyone, they are all having at least 2, 3 people working with them. They themselves are entrepreneurs. They are giving employment to somebody else. But why aren't we recognizing them? Right? And if you're taking this 10 crore businesses in India, formal and informal, and if even 3 or 4 or 5 people are working in these companies, you're talking about 50, 60 crore people, who is the working population of your country, right? And there is a very strong need for recognizing them, giving them additional knowledge, right? And if you look at our national institutions, they only hear the voice of the larger corporates, right? And but there we don't have something like an MSME cell where you can collate real life stories about the various businesses in our country. We don't have data about what they are doing. And then when you're talking about a Viksit Bharat status, we will have to look at really working on each one of these businesses, write stories about them, bring them to forums, make them talk, see the challenges to solve them, right? So that's one of the challenges that I
So
see.
now we spoke about India's business landscape and how there's a larger ignored section of MSMEs and small businesses which are overshadowed by large businesses. So the post which I refer to, you mentioned about a rupee link credit card. So you spoke about replacing the conventional credit-based system with project management-based systems and escrow link periods.
Right.
So, how do you think that this one change can bring a large shift in the current process?
So we have to identify problems in businesses as management institutions, and even if you're looking at it from a Viksit Bharat perspective, first you have to identify what the problem is. And I personally have seen that Indian businesses have a huge credit problem. I'm not talking about the credit from banks that is available in various forms, but there is a credit that runs between businesses, right? And hugely we don't see business to business respecting each other across the board. I'm not talking about a small company or a big company over here. Every company relies on their another company's credit system. Say for example, you give there as a tender pass, say for a 10 crore tender or a 100 crore tender. The first thing that the business that is taking that tender has to do is it has to have a good credit facility. And if you don't have a credit facility, you cannot proceed further. And if you have a credit facility, you are fundamentally giving that credit facility to the company that is awarded you the tender. It may be a private company or a government. And there is a huge credit comes at a cost of 13% commercial interest. And credit goes like 2 months, 3 months, 4 months in our businesses today, right? And in fact, some of the if you're dealing with the government, it goes even for months together, right? And every month of money not received to your company for the work done, it is interest cost of 13%, right? So when you keep losing 13% per annum for 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, 4 month, the next thing that's going to happen is if there is a product like say steel which costs you delivered around 1 crore rupees of steel and his margin is around 10%, the interest itself starts taking it away, right? And then he will be in a hard pressed situation to service his bank loans, and then he will start proliferating, right? So there is a big challenge over there. And then what is happening to the human resource side of it? So the credit system that is in between the small businesses and large business or any business, delays happen in payment to the human resources. Like if you take a construction contract, you're working for the government, they will say 10 months, 12 months for you to get your money. You work for a private company, they will say 6 months. And what happens to human resource? How do you make payments to them? How do you make payments to labor? How do you make payments to vendors? So there is a huge problem over here. And only companies that have credit facilities can actually play in the market, right? And that limits equitable opportunity for new entrepreneurs. Like in my instance, I don't participate in large in tenders at all, in commercial tenders, because of the very thing that you'll have to have a credit facility. And a simple thing is that when you buy a piece of cloth, you're going to pay money for that cloth across the counter and take it. Or you might use a credit card and 45 days credit and you've settled it, right? But why in businesses in India, the credit is given so much of importance, right? And that is a big impediment to progress in our country, right? So that is why I looked through the system and I said, why not every business, we're talking about 6 crore MSMEs, why not everyone have a GST linked credit card? Right? And The moment you bring a GST linked credit card, you will have a credit facility given by the bank, and then you start, you buy material, you swipe your card, and the payment is made to the vendor. You for the material service. And for the human resource side of it, the work is done, and you make the payments to them. But there is a track for the government, and payments are reaching real time. And when you do that, projects work can happen much faster, and a credit-based card system will give an opportunity for whoever over here is wanting to pursue entrepreneurship. I've spoken in this year. I've spoken in a few management schools like IIT, Vandi's School of Management, and then at SDM in Mysore. And here, across around 1,000 students, I see that hardly even not even 10% want to take up for entrepreneurship. Right? Why? Because it's perceived risk and there is a need for credit. So there is, once we have every business, if you want to set up a business and you have a credit card based payment system, you're going to be able to service your credit immediately. Right? So that is one proposal that I would have to bring a level playing field for businesses in India. And this would help us to go towards a Viksit Bharat sooner because payments are happening at a real time. At the same time, it's an opportunity for all youngsters over here to explore entrepreneurship too, because you have a level playing field. Otherwise, we don't have a level playing field today between large businesses and small businesses. And that's why we are shying away. And why are parents telling that family businesses children should not be getting into? Because of this very same problem of credit, right? You'll have to leverage on your resources to pay. So there is a huge risk associated, and today the markets are connected. You can put money in your stock markets through an app. You can have gaming apps, and you can lose money at any point in time. And you're putting all businesses at risk, right? So there is a challenge there, and I would urge the young management graduates over here to start looking at businesses in India at the MSME level and start writing about them and start looking at their problems. And we have to solve problems if we have to finish towards a Viksit Bharat.
So this would also, I guess, bring transparency to the payments for the vendors, suppliers.
Yes, and there's another proposal, and there are every tender has a certain value, and there is a material component in it, and there's a human resource component. That human resource actually converts the raw material into a product form. So we- I also propose that we should have a escrow-based accounting system, right, where the tender is awarded, and once the tender is awarded, say the government gives a 10,000 crore tender, that 10,000 crore is going to be paid out over a period of 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years. Now that 10,000 crore in parts has to come into an escrow account, because showing the money in an account builds trust for everyone who is involved in that work, the various stakeholders. You'll have the project coordinator, you'll have the project manager, you'll have the human resource providers, you will have the vendors, and they know that the money is there and it is going to hit their accounts in real time. That is when, with confidence, they can start servicing that work, and projects can happen that much faster in the country. Otherwise, today, an infrastructure project might take like if it's a 3-year contract, it lands up at 5-6 years. There are any other tenders also, they are getting delayed because of this problem of credit in the country. And so if you have an escrow-based system, we start seeing the money over there and we start paying real time. And works happen that much faster, and we get to progress to a Viksit Bharat that much faster.
Let's hope that this is implemented soon so that the upcoming entrepreneurs are really benefited from this. Now, one last question. Now, moving just beyond tokenism, how do you think, like, how to ensure grassroots entrepreneurs are a part of India's Viksit Bharat 2047 journey?
I think it has to start happening from everybody around us. It is not like, looking at the larger organizations saying that we are doing this for the smaller companies. It has to start from the grassroots level with the formal population of our country, the educated children in our country, needs to start recognizing the businesses, the smaller businesses, and then we need to start pulling our mind to start formalizing these businesses. Formalization is a big part of a Viksit Bharat program. Because in India, if you see, there are 60 crore people in the working population, of which 15 crores are in the formal segment, but 45 crore people are in the informal segment, right? They are in farming, they are in construction, they are driving India, around 10 crore people, 10 crore in each of them, and there are facility management people. These are the sections of people that we need to see how to formalize them. And we're talking about this 5 crore smaller businesses and the other 5 crore businesses that are not even visible. I think we need to start writing about them. We need to start seeing what we can do to formalize their businesses. And at the end of the day, for a Viksit Bharat, we need to start looking at mutual respect, right? Mutual respect between businesses, mutual respect between people. And I think we are definitely having a huge respect deficit in our country because things are just going, they're just going. You know, the bigger businesses become bigger, yeah, smaller businesses become smaller, and then we don't see people valuing smaller businesses, right? So we as youngsters, we as management grads, we need to start looking at these small businesses and starting to work with them in some or the other way, right? And that is where I think a lot of change can definitely happen. Otherwise, like I said, in 2003, when I came out of engineering, Infosys was offering to software engineers 3.5 lakh rupees as salary, and that was enough for them to buy a house in the first year itself, because in 10 years they'll clear their debt. But after 20 years, if you see, this year the offer from Infosys was 3.5 lakh rupees. But the cost of a house or a flat is around 1 to 1.5 crore, which means to say there is huge supply in the formal sector, but there is a very, very big demand problem. There is no demand for those particular skill sets. So, going towards a Viksit Bharat, we have to look at other sectors. In India, governance is a problem, right? And in India, people don't get into infrastructure and construction. You don't talk about it, but construction is 60% of your economy, right? Now, if I ask the audience over here, how many of us parents talk about construction, infrastructure, or getting into governance, how many of you will raise your hand over here? You would have. This is the scene across the country. I've at least spoken to 1,000 children, but it's never spoken about. We don't speak about hardcore sectors in our country. When we don't look at those segments, they build our homes, they build these beautiful institutions, right? The people behind these institutions are all in the informal sector, right? And we are not recognizing them. We are not seeing the pain points that they have. So how would you get into a Viksit Bharat situation if you don't look into these sectors? And the very nature of our governance, we came out of an independence movement wherein, yes, we had a lot of difficulty. We were a slave nation. We came out of it, and then the parents, the great grandparents at that point, and our great grandparents who came out of the independence movement had to work for survival, and they went to the government offices. They wanted to educate their children, and so that's happening. But at the end of the day, we are in that process, we are forgetting entrepreneurship. We are forgetting the informal sectors of our country. And even our national institutions are really not focusing on how to give that bit of education that can really make a difference in their lives. Like for me, as an example, I went to the National Law School in Bangalore for my post-graduation in human rights law, and I picked it up at 28,000 rupees. It's the number one national law school in the country. And it's made such a big impact in my life, right? But then, can we see our IIMs in India and our IITs being able to offer a 28,000 rupee education to the informal sectors of our country? Can we bring them to the table? Can we have a forum where we can talk to them and see what the problems they are having? Can we bring their children to the table and offer them a small education at a low cost so that they can go back and formalize their businesses? So I think there is a huge neglect for at least 90% of our businesses in our country, and you're only focusing on a few large country companies. And that is, I think, going to become a bigger problem for our children here to want to, pursue entrepreneurship. They might not. And then if they have to get into the corporate environments, there's another challenge over there because it's only a small segment that is available for you to explore your, employment in that sector. So we had to work towards all these aspects in our country if we have to get towards Viksit Bharat. And I would say very clearly, we need escrow-based accounting systems for projects in India to propel growth, and we need to bring in a GST-based credit card system for every business entity, and to make sure that we get into the formalization part, right? And that's what will help us grow.
So we have future business leaders and corporators. Hopefully, in the time they step into entrepreneurship, your proposal is actually implemented. Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure hosting you at I'm Sambalpur.